Hi, my name is Kate Martinez. For my social investigation project, I chose to research the organization Safe Harbor. The work that they do focuses on the social issues of child abuse, abuse of individuals with developmental disabilities, and protections for crime victims in the legal process. Safe Harbor is an advocacy group that helps children or adults with disabilities who have suffered from trauma, have been victims of abuse, or have been witnesses to a crime. Children and individuals with disabilities are especially vulnerable victims in the legal system, so their cases must be handled in a sensitive manner that is developmentally appropriate for them. And this group focuses on assisting these individuals and protecting them throughout their legal process so that they do not have to deal with further trauma and that they have the support that they need throughout their case. They work on a trauma-informed mindset, and part of their mission is to reduce trauma and promote healing. Safe Harbor believes that it is important for these victims to be protected throughout the legal process and be protected through the process of testifying. So they provide a safe and child-friendly environment for forensic interviews, which also protects these individuals from having to do multiple interviews with law enforcement officers or other agencies. So children who are actively involved in a case, they are referred to Safe Harbor so that they are able to do forensic interviewing at Safe Harbor rather than having to go through the process of interviewing with law enforcement agencies and then social workers and then going into court and going back and forth and dealing with that whole process. They are able to do the forensic interviewing at Safe Harbor. So typically children are required to testify in court, but they are sometimes given the option to testify through a two-way closed circuit system, so that they don't have to physically be in the courtroom. But regardless of how a child does their testimony, it can be a very emotional process. So Safe Harbor focuses on, reducing the amount of trauma and the amount of interviews that a child has to do and go through. So Safe Harbor, they believe that doing, testimonies in court may not always consider the best interests of children. So although they believe that it is important for judges and jury members to hear the testimony of the victims are protected and accommodated during the process when they do their forensic interviewing at Safe Harbor, and then the interview is then used in court rather than the child having to be in court. So one of the ways that Safe Harbor makes this possible is by doing a multidisciplinary approach by collaborating with law enforcement agencies and the other agencies that are involved with these cases. The organization believes that the people who work with these types of cases should be specially trained and have knowledge of different developmental levels. So Safe Harbor provides the assistance and resources throughout the legal process for these victims so that all of their needs are addressed and met. All of the individuals who work at Safe Harbor have special training and have knowledge of these issues so that they're able to provide the best possible care for these victims. For my interview, I spoke with Robin Kalela. She is the forensic interview program manager at Safe Harbor. She has been working there for 6 years and has experience doing forensic interviewing for over 11 years. So part of the main roles of her job is she does forensic interviews with the victims. She provides referrals for other services for families and victims. She does family advocacy services, and she also provides expert testimony in court for the victims. So in the courtroom, she will provide information about the developmental levels or linguistics of the child, as well as information about how the disclosure of abuse came from the victim. Safe Harbor does several things to raise awareness around this issue and around the work that their organization does. They hold fundraisers. They recently held one that was a 1960s theme fundraising event. They also do a Labor Day Dash event each year. And they also do educational presentations and sometimes do news appearances to raise awareness about this issue. One way that they are looking to expand their services is by adding an on-site mental health clinic as well as on-site forensic medical exams to reduce, the amount of outside services or places that a child may need to go in order to have enough evidence to provide in court. While child abuse is a very heavy topic that we don't really talk about, it is really important to have awareness and education so that we can help individuals who may have suffered from abuse, as well as providing early intervention. Early intervention is something that is incredibly important for children who have suffered from abuse or neglect because it can help save the lives of children, and it can help the issue be addressed before it becomes a case on TV. It is also incredibly important for people going into fields such as daycare workers, teachers, social workers, psychologists, to be able to recognize early signs of abuse so that these issues can be reported. It is also incredibly important to provide early intervention and to be able to recognize the signs of abuse because children may not always speak up due to fear of what might happen to them, and some children are unable to verbalize what's happening to them. Another important point that came up for me while researching this topic is that when we're discussing this issue, we only think about serving justice and not necessarily what would come next for a survivor of abuse. And so Safe Harbor is an organization that does provide resources for people after the fact, after they've gone through the legal process. So it is incredibly important to have organizations like these who do provide services and resources for people who are survivors of abuse.